Our review will be cut into a spoilery and non-spoilery review sections, and I will put on screen when to click off the video when the spoilers will begin, or I might mention it if not on screen. Marvel's latest installment into the MCU, Ant-Man, starring Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas, who we'd never thought we'd see in the MCU, playing Scott Lang and Hank Pym, respectively. Ant-Man follows the newly released from prison Scott Lang, who is rather determined to get his life back on track, on the straight and narrow, as he puts it. He works at, what is it, in a milkshake shack or something?
Baskin Robbins, isn't it? It's an ice cream. Yeah, it's an ice cream shop. I remember.
Yeah. And his mission is to get his life back on track so he can repair his relationship with his daughter and to not be put back in prison. But it goes AWOL when he is recruited in a rather hostile manner by Michael Douglas, who plays Hank Pym. The rest of the movies can basically sum up as wacky hijinks ensue.
Casting wise, I think the film is very well cast. I think that Paul Rudd was an interesting choice for Scott Lang. He's not somebody who you initially think of as sort of your superhero, but then I suppose
he's not someone you really think of as someone who could lead a film.
No,
you think he's like the plucky sidekick.
Yeah, but he does completely hold his own, and he's very, very believable. He gets.
He's also got amazing comedic timing. I think
Yes.
someone said that there is a lot of improv in the script, which I think definitely lends itself to the final product. It's a very funny movie.
Yeah, he is very, very sort of on it. When the jokes are coming, he is. You know he's going to get them, and that you know that they're going to be quite good.
We were having a discussion earlier about how the film seems to do as much as it possibly can to explain why Hope she's Van Dyne, not Pym, isn't she?
Yes.
Because, parental strife. They go quite far to explain why Hope Van Dyne cannot be Ant-Man or Ant-Woman.
Yeah,
and that's why they need Paul Rudd as Scott Lang.
Yeah, she is, from the outset of the film, you know that she is much more qualified, if you can be qualified to be Ant-Man. I don't know what
Well,
the
she's
correct
certainly more
term is.
capable.
She's much more capable of being sort of Ant-Man, but there is obviously a reason that her father doesn't want her to be.
That they won't stop pushing home.
And it is very, very much sort of forced upon you. If I'm honest, that would be my biggest complaint with the film, is it does go out of its way to explain why she can't be Ant-Man, and their reasoning for it isn't really good enough in my mind. It's sort of a very poor excuse of, essentially
we're doing it to protect you.
It's done to protect you. It's because your father loves you and he wants to look out for you. I get it in the sense
there's
that
a very nice parallel about father-daughter relationships.
Yes.
Which I didn't actually realise until quite a lot after I watched the film.
Yeah, there is a lot, because you sort of Scott is trying to
it's all about
his relationship with
it's
his
about repairing
daughter.
broken relationships.
Yeah, which works, but it is also a little bit annoying from a female perspective to see her
Yeah.
literally in one scene essentially beat the shit out of him, and then
Scott Lang, not Hank Pym.
Yeah, not
that
being
would
her
be
dad
a much
up.
more
That would be
entertaining father-daughter
That would be
sequence.
a weird thing for my poor Michael Douglas just having the shit picked out of him. But yeah, she sort of beats him up and she's teaching him how to fight, and all the qualities that he needs to be able to be the Ant-Man she already possesses.
It is a bit of a weird punch in the face of Hope that not only is she not allowed to be the Ant-Man, but she now has to train this complete and ineffectual buffoon to become Ant-Man. And you can see why she's bitter.
Yeah, you can completely understand where she's coming from, and I like that as well, because then she's not sort of this archetypal she's not just the pissy woman. She's actually got a pretty good reason for being a bit miffed with her dad. So it's good. I think they probably had to address it, because actually, the Marvel Cinematic Universe being what it is now, all the films that they have made, and actually you've yet to bother to make a film with a female protagonist, a female superhero. So it's good that they're sort of acknowledging that, but it's about time.
The rest of the film is a very well put together film. We're focusing a lot on Hope Van Dyne as the bad thing, because that is one of the literally few bad things in this entire movie.
Yeah, it is a very good movie. I mean, personally, I would have to say that I thought it was really, really funny. I think that it has got some excellent comedy sequences in it. A
lot of them are also action sequences. I definitely think it's one of the better Marvel Cinematic Universe movies.
Yes.
Not that any of them have been real stinkers, but it's on the higher tier of the goodness that is Marvel. Especially the fact they're up against themselves, so they're in a league of their own essentially.
Yeah, and it's particularly when it's sort of had not the easiest production.
Yeah.
There's always been a lot of
It seems to be a theme this year.
There's been sort of a lot of issues surrounding it, so actually that the end product could be as enjoyable to watch as it was, because at the end of the day, that's what you go and watch a film for, and it was highly enjoyable.
And now we're sort of approaching the spoiler-filled sections.
Yeah.
Which is that the physics of this movie pissed me off. That's like there's our two gripes with the film. One is Hope Van Dyne not being Ant-Man. The second one is physics. Because the way they explain Pym particles is that they increase or decrease the space between molecules, which they said will not change mass. So when Scott Lang is tiny, he can punch with the force of a normal human being. Is the way they explained it.
Yep.
But they said that there isn't much of a weight change. But that really bothered me, especially when there's a sequence at the end of the movie where Hank Pym uses a tank that he has shrunk to the size of a keyring to break out of a building. And if you follow their physical rules, it means that tank should still weigh the size of a tank. So Michael Douglas is completely ripped, or that is like a massive plot hole.
It's obviously got to be that Michael Douglas is completely ripped.
Michael Douglas is probably really ripped.
Yeah,
but like Hank Pym can like really punch a bitch in this film. Not that that's his wife, because they're leaving that out of the comics.
Yeah, that's one thing I would say. Yeah, in terms of faithfulness to the comics, it's not the most faithful thing. But then, to be honest, you
can't have wife beating in all ages Marvel Cinematic Universe movie.
Yeah, it's probably left out for a pretty good reason. Yeah. I think.
But the rest of the film is amazing. I thought the Thomas the Tank Engine scene really explains the physics of it. But that actual sequence where they are fighting on these trains, and then he finally gets upper hand, you think the train's going to crush him, and then you remember he's a person, that's a toy train, and it just falls off the track.
It does have some very, very good sort of scenes. There's nothing quite like
the fact that it's all shrunk is amazing.
Yeah. But I have to say, one thing that I do think is worth mentioning is that your villain in the film, Yellow Jacket, is quite a good villain. I mean, sometimes, in some of the Marvel films they can be a little bit forgettable, and I'm not saying that in 5 years' time you're still going to remember that the villain in Ant-Man is Yellow Jacket, but he's give sort of, I want to say Darren Cross.
Yes, that's his name.
He's due. Is that the actor's name, or is that the?
That's Corey Stoll, I think, is the actor's name.
Stoll. I kept wanting to call him Darren. Corey Stoll, give him he's very good in that. He is menacing, but he's not.
Yeah, he's appropriately menacing considering what his character seems to be going through in the movie. He was also had a really small amount of screen time, and he made quite a big impression in such a small amount of time.
Yeah, he's not there for very often. He's not on their screen for very often, but you know exactly who the villain is.
What do you think, to come back to our point about the relationships between fathers and daughters, there is another flip allegory, or fathers and sons, in the idea that Darren is meant to be Pym's almost adopted son, and then you can see that he is as much of a crappy adopted parent as he is a real parent. And that's why everyone seems to have a problem with Hank Pym.
It is sort of the idea that Darren sort of wanted this relationship. He wanted to be the heir to the Pym legacy, and actually Hank wasn't willing to give him that, and he's a little bit pissed off by it.
The weird thing is that he says that the reason he doesn't want to give it isn't because he's a bad person, it's because he's too much like himself. The movie seemed to revolve around the failures of Hank Pym.
Yeah, it is sort of the failures of parents, really.
Just Hank Pym. What did you think about how it fits into the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because they go out of their way to explain why they're not getting Iron Man.
Yep.
Because Hank Pym and his, ever sociable, amazing parent status can't get on with anyone, including Tony Stark.
I think as a cinema, sort of including it in the Marvel Universe, I think they knew that they were going to have to introduce it into the cinematic universe.
It has to be tied in.
Yeah, hence the scene with Falcon.
Yeah.
Which I actually quite liked. I know you're not a huge Falcon fan, but personally I thought it was quite good. It's silly, it's funny, it is quite amusing to watch, Falcon. Having seen Captain America 2 as well, where he's sort of flying around and everything else, and he's quite cocky and sure of himself, to then actually see him taken
by
down
Ant-Man of all
by
people.
This tiny little man is quite amusing, and it's meant to be.
And since we're on spoilers, the end credits scene with Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, seems that they've used Scott Lang's connection with Falcon to bring Falcon in for Civil War.
Yep.
That seems the way it definitely seems that's the way it's going to go. So I think it's good that they've actually set up that connection, that they're actually going to use that for future films. So it feels a lot more reasonable that they've done it that way.
Yeah, it feels a bit more natural. How did you feel about the end of the film?
What, we're revealing Wasp?
Well,
The fact at the end of the film where we're going, you can't be Ant-Man, but you can be Wasp.
yeah, that's kind of a we've already discussed that we're not fans of that. No, I meant more with the whole idea of actually that it's sort of, it doesn't really tell you what he's doing at the end of it.
He's trying to take his arm off, isn't he? He had his arm in like a vice.
With who?
I was talking about Bucky. Who are you
Oh
talking
no,
about?
I wasn't talking about the end credits. I was actually talking about the end of Ant-Man.
Oh.
At the end of Ant-Man, it's sort of like, is he like a hero for hire? You don't really get much of an explanation.
It's not really a complaint, but there was one thing, which is you don't understand why Scott Lang is doing what he's doing. Because they push it as it's because he wants to be redeemed in the eyes of his daughter. It's like, unless his daughter's coming in and like seeing what they're doing, she's not going to have any idea. So I really wanted to know, is Hank paying him?
I think
Because I would assume so.
Yeah.
But there's not really any mention. It just seems like he's just like found a new hobby and it's shrinking down in like corporate espionage.
I think it does sort of leave it very sort of open at the end, but I suspect that is probably to do with, you know, the Marvel Universe. Just so
Yeah.
actually, if you leave it vague at the end of Ant-Man, so you don't really know what he's doing, you could then actually explain quite nicely why in a next Marvel film or whatever, Ant-Man's there, but Hank Pym's not. It makes it a lot easier to sort of move them around.
Yeah. No, I'd love to see a scene with Tony Stark and Hank Pym. Because, you know, he just apparently punches everyone, so that'll be funny. So is it something you'd definitely go see again?
Yes. Buy it on DVD.
Would you buy it on DVD?
I would buy it on DVD.
I might buy it in that big Phase 2 box set they're going to do. But yeah, it's definitely something you should own.
Yeah, I would think so.
And please like and subscribe this video if you'd like to see more. We are uploading videos throughout the weekday and possibly at the weekends as well. And please tune in again tomorrow for another video.
And they're always very pacey. They're very entertaining anyway, but they're very,
Keep
very
saying
pacey.
I counted 5 times.
You said talk about pace, and now the only word I can think of is pacey. It's like sitting here, like floating in front of my face, like pacey, 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 pacey.
So we think it's quite a well-paced movie.
Yes. Say pace.